should know. Yay. I'm Erica Lance. I'm an author, but I'm also CEO and founder of Four Horsemen Publications. With me today is the amazing J.M. Paquette.
Hello.
Yes.
Author, lead editor at Four Horsemen.
And PhD in English literature. So just in case you're wondering why you should listen to us, that might be why. But today we are talking about motivation for authors. I want to write a book. I can't tell you how many times authors or people come up to me, conventions, wherever, and go, I want to write a book. And I hate to say when I run into them later, if I run into them later and go, oh, how's that going? Yeah, it's, I even have my own personal motivational issues with writing. So we're going to talk about that a little bit and what may work to keep you accountable in writing, right? So we're going to start with, we have a couple of books that go along with this. JM, do you want to hold them up? It's the Author's Accountability Planner. We do this one every single year. And there is a wonderful companion guide this year, the Writing Prompts to Keep You Accountable. The links are in the show notes. But let's talk a little bit about why writing is so hard. J.M., why do you think writing is so hard?
Because I think we have this romantic notion of like the writer alone in the cabin, like pounding out on a typewriter, and that the words just flow magically. And there are some times where it's like that, where you're writing and you're like, this is amazing, and everything is working. And then the next time you sit down to write, it's hard and it doesn't flow. And you're like, well, what is this? Like I have this idea in my head of what my writing process should be like. And when it's not like that every single time, people get frustrated. And it's annoying. You're like, my brain worked fine yesterday. What is happening today? And it's just because we're human. Sometimes things work and sometimes they don't. So I think that's part of what makes it frustrating. Like we see all these movies, right, where the author is just writing. And that's not how it is. Sometimes
I agree 100%. I think that this is one of the things, like, I know, authors are different. Every author is different. And you have to remember that as a writer, what works for one person isn't necessarily going to work for you. That doesn't mean you shouldn't try it. It just means you need to be prepared to have your own morphing version of that. But people have tried things for a long time. Like, I know some people who set goals for themselves of X amount of words per day. They're going to write 250 words a day. Doesn't matter what it is, they're writing 250 words a day. Or I know people who go, I'm going to write in the morning. And so first thing when I get up, I'm going to grab a cup of coffee and I'm going to write. Or you write in the evening, for instance, right? You find after kiddos are in bed and all that fun stuff, it's the best time to write, correct?
Yeah, I'm a night person. So I hop on the computer at about 9 o'clock. And really at like 11 to midnight, that's my sweet spot. That's when it really starts working.
Which I can't write from 11 to midnight. I'd be unconscious. So I find that for me, it's easier to write first thing in the morning before anything else is started. Because I think the key thing is people will put their writing to the side like other hobbies because it's not a routine. It's not part of what they're doing. It's kind of like working out. Like, everybody gets excited a lot at the beginning of the year to be like, I'm going to go to the gym, or I'm going to start running, or I'm going to do yoga, or any number of things, right? But then if you don't get it into a habit and part of your routine and a requirement, it never gets accomplished. You'll go a couple times and then that's it, versus like, even people will pay for gym. The amount of gym memberships that get paid for that are never used is probably what keeps the gym industry in business. It's not the actual people who use the gym.
No, not at all. But one thing that helps with that, with the gym and just habits in general, is having a buddy, having an accountability partner. Because I know, not that I went to the gym very often in my younger years, but when I did, it was only because, and it was you would be there. So I
Yes,
was like,
I
well, I
know.
have to go because Erica will be there all by herself. So I guess I'll go. And you like guilt yourself into going. And I feel like writing, you could do the same thing. Like I get on at 9 o'clock with a group of people who also write in the evening. And we're all there to support each other. And sometimes we talk and sometimes we don't. We just keep our cameras off and we write. And it works out that way.
And so we created, as part of this book, a Discord community called the Authors Accountability Group, right? So accountable authors group so that people could be accountable with each other, because sometimes you just need that. Sometimes you need to hear about other people's accomplishments, or if you get stuck, having people to go, hey guys, I'm a little stuck. Can I throw this out there? And let it get thrown out there to hopefully unstick you, not because they're going to tell you something that you're going to put in your writing, but they'll say enough or talk through enough that it gets unbogged and you
Mhm.
jump in. But
Mhm.
you have to set this up that you're there all the time. You
Mhm.
have to go in once a day and decide what your writing time and make that your writing time,
Mhm.
and decide in that writing time whether it's researching, writing, editing, what you're going to do. But that time has to be yours, and it has to be sacred and agreed upon by everybody. Because if that doesn't occur, it doesn't matter how many people you have in your lives, you won't go and you won't write, right?
And
So
it doesn't have to be like I write for hours in the evening because I'm a night owl and I'm awake. But even if you just set up like you said in the morning with your coffee, just write till your coffee gets cold. Like that's you still it's every day. It's just part of your routine. It's the thing you do like brushing your teeth, you know?
yeah, and even if you do it for, here's the thing, like people sometimes think they have to sit down, and yes, sometimes you can get in a sprint and write for 8 hours, just go pee, and somebody can bring you snacks,
Hmm.
i.e., our husbands have to bring us snacks. But um, you can sometimes do that. That can't be the goal. It's kind of like you're not going to go work out for 5 hours every morning, where some people, Mark Wahlberg talks about his workout routine, which is ridiculous, by the way. And you watch like The Rock or Chris Hemsworth, where he's preparing for Thor. Like you watch these guys working out, Jason Momoa, and you're like, oh my gosh. No, that's not, that's the expert level of doing something. You need to start with, can I go walk around the block? And
Yeah.
writing can be that way. 15 minutes. Just set aside 15 minutes to do something. And maybe you go, well, I don't feel like I'm getting into it. Well, train yourself to get into it. Set a timer. Do a 15-minute sprint in the morning, or 3 5-minute sprints, and get yourself going, and just do that. Because what do they say? 6 weeks to form a habit.
Something like that. I mean, I'm in a habit solid now, and it's funny because when I go like for vacation for Christmas, I go see my family, and I'll be honest, I don't hop on during those times. So you have to kind of arrange around your family, around, I know that this week is going to be, I'm moving, I can't do it right now. Those kinds of interruptions are expected. But the important thing is to get back into it as soon as you can. Like when I come back from my Christmas break, that Monday I'm back on again. And then it's weird at first. I'm like, oh yeah, I do this, don't I? And then by Wednesday, I'm like, yeah, this is just what I do. So having that is as a backup routine, and just not feeling guilty for not doing it when life is unexpected. You have things going on, they can interrupt your routine. Just be reasonable and get back into it as soon as you can.
Yeah, I think key is to that though is understanding what is an interruption and understanding what you're allowing to interrupt,
True. Yeah.
right? So, um, whatever your routine is, and even if you're going away on trips and stuff, you can still take a notebook with you and jot ideas down, or, maybe print out some of the pages and start working on the editing, or whatever you can do to keep yourself grounded. But know that that has to be part of your routine. You just have to make it part of your routine. And one of the things about the book, which is why we wrote it, the planner, is it keeps you on track, knowing what is coming next, what you have accomplished, and it lets you have insight into your goals. But combining that with a community is huge. And some people do better. They go, maybe you need to grab your laptop and go to your local coffee shop, whether that's a Starbucks or, some fun local coffee shop. They'll get to know you there. If you go sit at a table with your earbuds in and just have your morning coffee at a coffee shop, or lunchtime, even at work, we have some writers who use their lunchtime. They just go pop into their cars or whatever, take their laptop and write for a half an hour, even if that's their lunch while they're stuffing their face. That's their writing time. It's time they've allocated to themselves to do that writing.
Mhm.
So Let's talk a little bit about some of the other things that can get in the way. Life can get in the way easily, right? But I know I can get into the way myself because I sometimes, if I get stressed or I'm having a bad day, I can't write. I feel like I don't do that. But we know people who, when they're stressed, write a ton. That's their outlet for it, right? So I
Mhm.
think part of what you have to do is figure out, what kind of writer are you? Are you a stress writer? Are you a tired writer? Are you a have to be a caffeinated awake writer? Like, figure out where you do well and then slot yourself into that. Maybe it's right before you go to bed at night. Maybe
Mhm.
you take the laptop and you sit in your bathtub and you write. I know authors who do that. Some go sit on their porch, some they can throw it while they're watching TV. Like, there's all kinds of writers. So find that part of yourself, figure out what works. Can you do it? Like one of our authors at Four Horsemen, I know she sits when she's watching TV in the living room with her husband and writes her romance. Like, I think that's adorable because she's sitting there watching Bridgerton romance. Like, you find what your jam is and do it, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So what other tips can you give, do you think, to authors out there?
I I think one of the oh, here's something I do when I kind of get stuck or I get tired of a story. All right, now you have to do this in small doses, but I
Baby steps. We're about to
that
go expert level here.
this is
Okay.
this is the trick. You can rabbit hole a little bit. Like, for instance, I'll give you an example. I was writing a fight scene, and I wrote a villain, and I was like, we're just gonna kill this guy real quick. And then one of the things I do to help keep myself accountable, because I'm bad about this, I am not an artist. I can't draw, so I know this is controversial, but I will use AI to create my pictures of my characters so that I don't have to constantly control F to find out what color their eyes are. So I have a picture of all of my characters that is generated that I just use from my memory. So I can just look back and be like, oh, that's right, Max has brown eyes and he's got the long hair and he has the little mustache going on. Like, okay, that's him. So one thing that I did while I was writing the scene is I was like, all right, I need to coordinate a little bit. What is this villain wearing? And I was like, he's just a villain and I don't really care. Whatever, just give me like generic vampire baddie. And then it gave me a picture and I was like, oh, well, that's a really cool person. And now I need a backstory. And now he's a main character in the series because I couldn't kill him. So what seemed like me goofing off and not writing ended up being super helpful. So I spent the better part of one of my writing evenings trying to build a backstory for this new character who suddenly came in and took over my book. Um,
Yeah.
but
And a lot of
and,
people who use celebrities and stuff. This is,
yeah,
their character looks like Chris Hemsworth. I'm going to keep bringing him up. I enjoy looking at him. Or
that's really
Jason
cool.
Momoa. I enjoy looking at him too. But I think that, it's important to do those things, but it's also like you can pivot between stories. Some people do that. Like
Mhm.
when they're getting into a grind on one story, they'll just switch to another story that they want to work on or another idea, flesh out a scene, do something. As long as there's constant forward progress is really what you need to do, is find how you keep moving. Because if you don't keep moving, you won't keep writing. And if you don't keep writing, you're not going to fill that giant readership vacuum. Because if you think about it, I we say this all the time, romance readers will read 7 books a week. How many books do you have out there, authors, to be able to feed a 7 book a week habit that somebody has? Somebody can go through your catalog really, really quickly and they're going to want more. So you just have to keep making sure you're writing to doing more. And whether that's a short story, a novella, all the way up to like a 200,000 word sci-fi novel, you have to keep writing. And one thing is, one of the books that goes along with this, so we have an author's accountability group. We have a planner that you can use, but we also have writing prompts. So if you're getting stuck, you can always grab the writing prompt book, pick a prompt and take 5 minutes and write a story based on that prompt or whatever, right?
Mhm.
To get yourself motivated again to switch back to your actual story. And I also always say, if you get stuck, put the car in reverse, put that writing in reverse, back up to where you were doing well, and see if instead of right, you need to go left, or instead of left, you need to go right, because you never know where you're getting stuck and what's not working. But if you're not moving forward, that's what's not working. So go
Mhm.
back, even if it's some cool thing you want to incorporate. There's a lot of cool things we want to incorporate that sometimes have to be chucked out of the story because they don't allow the story to flow.
And also, you keep those. You put them in the story graveyard. I know most writers have like a document or a file somewhere where they're like, this scene was awesome, but I can't use it right now. So it's not lost. You haven't like wasted your time on writing a thing. You just copy and paste that thing, and maybe later on you can go back and revisit it or use it for another story or another scene. And that way you feel like, you're still moving forward, but you go back to the point where you got stuck with your story. The other
Exactly.
thing, like, talk it out with fellow people who read or write in your genre. Sometimes it works if you talk to someone who doesn't read your genre and but those, I don't know, those conversations are always strange. I'm like, hey, so I write cheesy vampire romance. And then the science fiction reader is like, uh-huh, so it's just going to be a lot of kissing, huh? Like, you know, I don't know that those conversations sometimes they're insightful, but for someone who either appreciates the story that you're telling or does the same thing and writes in the same genre, those are the people who are probably going to give you more specific feedback that you can find useful. But sometimes you do need that outsider perspective. That's good too. But talking it out with someone, and I don't mean like you have to sit down for hours, just be like, hey, I have a random idea for you. I have this situation, my character, I could do A, B, or C. If you were the reader, what would you want them to do? And even if they say C, and then you're like, oh God, no, no, that's terrible. That's what you needed. You needed someone to tell you not to do that. And then
Exactly.
it moves you forward.
Exactly. No, I think it's vital, and that's why you want a community. So whether it's a community of people you find, or you join something like the Accountable Authors Discord, find other writers, because this is a very lonely activity if you do not find other people of like minds. And you can even do that going to writers conventions or nerd conventions and walking up to writers. You'll find people who become your friends and your tribe, and that's what you will create this entire community for yourself, and you will find out these will be some of your best writer friends. That doesn't mean you have to go hang out with them at a bar or something, unless that's how you want to write. I know a writer who used to go to a noisy bar, and he'd bring his laptop and he'd sit in the corner and he would write vampire spaghetti westerns in this bar with a scotch. He was wonderful. And so, like, you can do that, but these are classified writer friends. But you'll find they're your biggest support, because no matter how supportive your friends and family are, sometimes they're not your biggest fan because you're not writing a genre they're reading or whatever. They're not necessarily going to be helpful. That's not a bad thing, but find those people that will be helpful to you. Find those
Mhm.
people who want to talk to you, who want to discuss, who've been through what you've been through, to keep yourself motivated, because they're out there. And I can tell you, if you try to do this all on your own, it's going to be way more difficult in the long run.
Definitely.
Any final thoughts?
Um, you know what? Don't, if you, while you're trying to find your author friends, don't feel obligated like I have to read everything that they've written in order to be able to talk about writing. Like, I have plenty of friends where I've read snippets or scenes or little bits or talked about it, but you don't have to say like, oh, you've written 20 books and now I have to read them all before I can approach you to be like, hey, let's talk about writing things. Like, you can just connect with someone on the level of we are both writers. If you want to read their stuff, that's great and cool, but you don't have to. That's not a requirement of being a writer buddy.
Yeah, and you don't have to be friends with everybody in a writers community. You can just have people there. You can bounce ideas. You'll click with somebody and you'll find those people that are the absolute best friends you'll make from a writing standpoint, and will be your supporters and stuff like that. And again, you don't have to read all their work. Some people don't like You like happy endings to stories. I don't put happy endings in my stories. You don't like reading those stories. Understandable. I've not held it against you in a quarter of a century now for that, because I know that it's not something you like, but you can give me advice on directions and stuff like that and ideas that I have, which is
Mhm.
great. That just doesn't mean you go, yes, I want a story where nothing gets wrapped up and I
Yeah.
leave fully unsatisfied. Oh my gosh. Okay, so final words of advice. Writing is hard. Use the author's accountability planner. Use the writing prompts to keep you accountable. Join an author's accountability group. Find a writing group. Find a prose group in your area. Just find that team of people that can be your friends, and make sure you figure out what kind of writer you are. Try all the things. Find what works for you and then do that and keep improving upon it, because very much like we joked about being an expert at the gym and stuff like that, if you do it for long enough, you start knowing exactly your pattern, exactly what it takes, exactly your maximum velocity. And then you know how long it's going to take you to write the things and what the effort is you need to put into doing it. So your readers out there can hear your stories, because I can tell you, whether you realize it or not, you have fans out there waiting to hear from you. And with that, Jen, final words?
Make it a habit, go to work every day. Sometimes it's awesome. Most of the time it's awesome. And even when days when it's not awesome, just stand up, take a walk, take a turn around the room, sit back down, try again.
I love that. I love that. And this has been What Writers Should Know. Please like, subscribe, follow us. We're here and we want to keep you accountable, because writing is hard. And we will see you next time.